Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Digital Download. Um, and today we're going to be talking about what we think is quite an interesting topic. We hear so much about AI disruption and how it's changing things. But do we think that it's really disrupting the tech side of things, or do we think it's disrupting the people side of things, specifically executive identity? So before we get into the meat of this, let's go around the room and introduce ourselves. Ladies first, Helen.
Hi, Helen Mackenzie, proud associate of DLA Ignite, all the way from a rather chilly and a rather football depressed Scotland.
Tracy.
Oh no, did Scotland lose? I'm assuming.
They did.
Aye, yes.
I feel like I have no idea how Canada's doing. They won one game really big, and then
They've got a good national anthem, apparently, nearly as good as ours.
That's all that matters, right? The theme song. The theme song is what matters. Good morning, everybody. I am Tracy Borison, proud partner of DLA Ignite as well, and representing Canada on the call. Like I said, I have no idea how well we're doing in the World Cup, but I saw that one game, and usually Canada isn't really like a soccer country, so I was like, yeah, let's go Canada.
Yeah, go Canada.
Why not?
Tim,
Yes.
with a new title, it would seem.
Yes, it would seem. It would seem. Yeah. So, my name's Tim Hughes, and I'm the CEO of DLA Ignite and a company called Azpertilo.AI. And I'm also famous for writing the book Social Selling and Influence, using social media for cold outreach and new business sales.
Hi, everybody, and lastly, and I was going to say by no means least, but that's not actually the case, is it? Lastly and leastly, I'm Adam Gray. I'm Tim's business partner in both DLA Ignite and Azpertilo.AI. Yes, so this is an exciting topic, isn't it? Because we hear so much about AI, disruption and how it's changing the world. And it seems that AI is focused, or people's perception of AI is focused extremely tightly on executing tasks with greater efficiency, rather than perhaps humanizing at scale or taking away some of the jobs that you as a human can't do. And one of the challenges that we face is that since the beginning of time, your ability to do your job, your knowledge, your experience, your ability to execute on the tasks that your job entails has absolutely been where your value has come from. And success has largely in the business world been determined by how well you can do a job, how quickly you can recall those facts and figures and the knowledge, and how you can deploy that in a meaningful kind of way. But that potentially is going to be set to change, isn't it? Because all of a sudden, everybody can do this. Everybody has access to the same AI tools, and all of the same AI tools will deliver all of the same outcomes. So what does this mean for individuals? But before we answer that question...
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew. So how is this going to impact people, and how are people going to remain the differentiator?
Well, I would say the interesting thing is, I think we've all noticed that it has impacted people. Like we had this, I mean, what was it, 5 years ago? Was it 5 years ago now that like ChatGPT came out for the first time? So let's be honest, AI has been around for a minute now, folks, right? Like, what is the disruption? But what it does is the same thing that social media did, which is changed human behavior. So there was a shift in the technological ecosystem, and it changed human behavior. So even if you look at it simply, like people are asking AI for things now instead of asking Google for things now, right? Like it's changed human behavior. But what is even more interesting is how it is or isn't contributing to what we thought it was going to do. I've been having this conversation actually with a whole bunch of people all week about capacity, right? AI is supposed to increase human capacity if we are using AI. And yes, it's about efficiency and all those things, but then because I can process more tasks, I can increase my capacity for other things. I can increase my capacity for the things only a human can do: thoughts, relationships, conversations, and these different types of things. But to date, the data does not show that the use of AI has increased the human capacity. So what we're using AI for is stuff that then we're like filling up the time savings with other stuff.
Well, I don't think it's other stuff. I think it's doing more of the same things. So,
It's also
that. So more low quality stuff. So, I think we saw this with marketing automation, didn't we? When you could send personalized emails at the right time to your database, rather than, for the most part, rather than marketers saying, this is amazing, we can now focus, because that all takes much less time and much less human input. What we can do is we can focus on making sure that the messaging is arriving absolutely when it should arrive, and that all of the thinking that goes behind the offer that we're making to that person be more appropriate. And that's how it should have been used. But in fact, what we ended up doing was just going, well, we just need a bigger database so we can mail to more people. And I think that's what we're seeing with AI. People are saying, rather than do 100 of these menial tasks that have been taking up my morning, I can now do 1,000 of these during the course of the morning. And the problem with that is that if the 100 don't work, why would 1,000 work? Sorry, Tim.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think that we're moving from a know-it-all culture to a learn-it-all culture? If AI can basically synthesize a 50-page market report in seconds, the value isn't knowing about the report content. It's about knowing and asking the data, what does that data mean? So the differentiator for leadership is about curiosity and framing, and defining the problem statement so clearly that the technology can actually solve it effectively. And I think that's what we're seeing is one of the changes that are taking place.
And I think one of the challenges is that we operate in a sort of industrialized model of how work works, and that's where this sort of productivity gain use of AI comes in, and it rather than a knowledge economy, let's say, way of thinking about the world, and some of that comes from the way that people learn, the whole education system. I remember, I don't know if any of you came across a paper that Seth Godin did, I don't know, about 15 years ago. It was called Stop Stealing Dreams, and it was basically talking about how the whole way schools work and the whole way that we give young children and young people capability to operate in the world needed to change, because that efficiency, industrialized, being able to perform tasks, I'm able to stick some things into a model to generate all these emails, isn't the way that value is created in the world, and isn't the way that the world is going. So I think you're right, Tim, that AI does give us that potential to synthesize and to be able to use that information in a meaningful way. I think one of the challenges is, and it's been something that we've talked about in the procurement space that have come from a while, is, do people actually have that capability to do that? So if I'm not doing the processy bits of my job, on the phone with my script, if I'm in sales, on the phone with my script, and then somebody comes and I've got a way of doing things. If I have to think, have conversations, interact with people, and perhaps react on the spot about things, is that something that I can do? And although AI can help with us, I think there's something around that that's quite interesting, and actually then plays to people that do have that capabilities, or leadership that see that as important, build teams that think like that, ask more questions. So it's I think we're at quite an interesting tipping point in terms of that, and the people that get that and think like that and lead like that are going to be the ones that succeed potentially?
Well, I think one of the big issues is so Tim, you read a lot of books, don't you? You know, you're a voracious reader, and you read long form content because you're used to reading long form content. And I think that the challenge for most people is, you said about the summarizing of like bigger documents. The problem for most people, and this is a very generic comment, is that they can't now consume long form. They have to have that summary, and they're deferring to the AI. And I get your point, Tim. They're deferring to the AI to be able to say, of this 1,000 pages, these are the 6 things that you need to know, which can be really valuable. But I think the problem is, and I think that the role of leadership over the coming decade will be to empower people to ask questions and to challenge those people to come up with something about challenging the AI. Because we're already seeing it, aren't we? You know, AI says no. You know, this is what I need to do. Even if people know it's wrong, they often go and do the thing, Tracy. You know, they go and do the thing. And the reason they do the thing is because they don't have enough confidence, because they've been emasculated by this constant stream of right answers. You know, this.
But isn't that therefore the role of leadership,
Absolutely.
or the skills to have, is to basically to understand the framing, and you know, all of the soft skills that we've been talking about, you know, the authenticity, and those sort of things. Those are the soft skills that we need in the AI world, rather than actually, I know all the facts and on all the figures.
Yeah, but I think that, you know, if one of the things that you're really good at, Tim, is reading a book and distilling it down and writing a summary of that book. You know, these are the things that jumped out to me. These were the learnings, the aha moments for me. AI doesn't have aha moments, so it filters that stuff down, and it maybe doesn't give you the helpful things at the end of that. And yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, in a world of facts, the humanity and the fact that I like you is more important than just having the right numbers, because everybody's got the right numbers, haven't they?
Well, I think one of the things that's coming up for me is, I don't know if this was like the same brand in the UK, but when I was in school, they had this thing called Coles Notes, which was a cheat book for other books. So you wouldn't have to read the books for English class. You could just get the Coles Notes and you could get all of the important things. Like Coles Notes is the first version of the AI disseminating information, right? Like this has always been a thing. But if you think about the types of books that Tim reads, or the types of books that I read now, versus like the things I was assigned to read, right? Like I don't actually want to read that, which is why I get the Coles Notes, because I don't want to read that thing. Now, as an adult, I get to choose the things that I want to read, so I can read them and I can disseminate them. And I learn differently, or I hear different things in an audiobook than I consume if I am reading a book. And you make a really important point, Adam, about actually, I was having a conversation with a collaborator yesterday about this, who was saying, like, we had done an event and we had all these feelings about the event, like what we do differently next time and what we might do with the next one, because the next one's on the calendar. And then she was like, what if we just like take all of our AI notes from ever and have it find the patterns of the things, and then we can choose what to do based on that. And I was like, we can do that. That's the option to do that. But then also what we're doing is we're taking away that human component of, I was in this, I felt like we could do this better next time. Why would I take that like human ownership of a feeling and reassign it to AI because it's smarter? I think this is, or has more data. Let's say it has more data, not smarter, because it doesn't have wisdom. It just has data. And so if our human behavior starts to trend in the way of, we trust the data and knowledge, or dare we start to believe that it's wisdom in AI, and we're going to let that dictate our behaviors instead of what we would do and feeling in the moment, this is what I would do, then we're actually losing the practice. Whether that, similar to what you said, Helen, right? Like if I don't practice having a conversation, I can't get better at having a sales conversation with a person by asking AI things, or even by having AI ask me things, right? There's a component of that. I can't build the skill that way. So I think this is the biggest concern I have, is that, are we cognizant of the skills that are either being built or are not being built through our use of AI? And although it allows us, or it's a potential enabler, let's say, of curiosity, are we using it for that? Because if we're not using it for that, we're practicing other skills. What are those other skills, and are they equally helpful?
But well, you said about sales conversations and getting better at sales conversations. So I completely agree. AI is not a person, but why is it that so many sales platforms have AI tools to help you practice your cold calling scripts and get experience of talking to somebody, even though it's not a body? Uh, why has that become so popular? Because it's surely counterintuitive. The whole point is that I should get on a call with you and we should build some kind of rapport, and there should be some kind of chemistry there. And if there isn't any chemistry there, it's going to be a bit of an uphill struggle to sell you something. But if there is chemistry there, well, the deal is mine for the taking, one would hope.
Do you think that's this whole thing, that this whole misconception that you can digitalize human relationships, that actually it does come down to a magic formula? I mean, dating apps are an interesting scenario on that, where you put your profile in. Not myself, I've never used one, but I've got friends that have used them, and you put your profile in, the other person puts their profile in, there's some sort of data thing to match you, and actually it doesn't work particularly well for the scenarios that I've heard about, because even though you take the data, that chemistry that you talk about isn't something that you can digitize. So I think there's something about practicing stuff, but it's back to that thing about efficiency and that factory perception of what work is now, and what happens in the business environment now, and that everything can be standardized and productized and digitized. And actually that bit, the chemistry bit, I don't think can be. I mean, I could be proved to be wrong, but...
So Tracy met her husband on a dating app.
I did. Yes, I met my husband on eHarmony. So I was really excited to share my perspective on this, but you're totally right. And what a dating app does is it exposes you to a pool of people that you wouldn't have had exposure to, right? It doesn't eliminate the chemistry component. And so while it can try to be very smart and ask you these questions, like, actually in retrospect, a lot of the questions that I had to ask that it was matching me on, I was like, man, I don't think this was completely useful at all. But at the end of the day, it's like two people get in a room and you like talking to each other, or you don't like talking to each other. That's it on a first date, right? Like, you have to like talking to somebody enough to go on a second date with them. And then you go on a second date or third date, or as many dates as you want.
Some get married.
Or one date. Yeah, some get married. Sometimes it's one date, right? Because like, I went on other dates from that app as well. And I went on one date and I'm like, yep, nope, that's not going to be a thing. But there's that like human discernment that is still happening behind the scenes. And if we don't practice the human discernment, then you probably could do online dating for a very long time and get a whole bunch of bad matches and date a whole bunch of like not compatible people.
Is that because the data, the data is poor? So, now when I say you, I don't mean you, Tracy, because clearly this worked for you. But I think a lot of people go onto a dating app and they think to themselves, what does my ideal match think they want to find when they are on the dating app? What they want is somebody who loves pets and children and likes fine dining and doesn't like sports, and whatever it is that they think their partner is looking for. And then that's what and it's very unauthentic or inauthentic. It doesn't reflect who they are. And whether or not it's a first date or a 10th date thing, eventually that comes out in the wash, doesn't it? And people go, actually, the things that you said you liked and the reason that I matched with you, you don't like. And I think that to a certain extent, we're we're seeing that with AI, aren't we? It's being the questions that we're asking it, back to your point, Tim, about asking better questions. The questions we're asking it, or the data that's going into it in the first place, is incomplete or inaccurate. So the conclusions that are coming out are giving people bad decisions. Now, we've got a really interesting comment here.
There's a really good comment here.
Imani, AI is exposing the already existing organizational poor culture. Organizations lacked basic human interaction, and now that AI is doing most of the technical work, they are panicking over threatened value. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Because I think for a lot of time, organizations, they didn't see that human interaction as being anything of particular value. You need to sit at your desk. You're not allowed to go to the canteen very often. You're not allowed to do these things very often. And I think that a little while ago, Apple, when they were building their donut-shaped headquarters, they made sure that they put the bathrooms a long way away from people's desks. And they deliberately did that. So you have to walk a long way past loads of other people in order to go to the bathroom, in order that you can say, oh, hello, Tim, not seen you for ages. I've just got to pop to the loo. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Let's grab a coffee. Because they recognize that interaction was where the magic happened.
We say pop to the loo here, Tracy.
I get it.
Yes, or skip to the loo.
My darling.
Loo.
Yeah. And like any deal, it comes down to the details. And I think that it's. I think that one of the challenges that we have is that AI is doing more and more of this this initial outreach, the creation of content, the shaping of the content, the analyzing the data, the production of the outreach tools, and potentially the doing of that outreach. And it may or may not be engaged by an AI agent at the other end that then determines whether or not this is a good fit and then puts the two together. But ultimately, as we've always said, it's a human that's going to sign the purchase order. It's a human that's going to put their career on the line to buy this product or not buy this product. And surely the role of leadership in the future is going to be to get people to be more human, to encourage them that the AI needs to be a support mechanism for them to take away some of the drudgery. But as a salesperson, you always use the term, Tim, bag carrying salesman. As a salesman, you are of little value to the organization when you're sitting at your desk, and the most value when you're sitting next to the client at their desk. Okay, so how do we get that to happen more?
And I think that's the key of it, isn't it? That this misconception that you can design a perfect fit from using AI, I think is a misconception. So in the procurement space, which I've come from, there's this perception that if you use technology to buy, you can take humans out of it altogether. That's going to get you the perfect fit. We think about recruitment, where you're using AI to shortlist people and to choose people and get the perfect fit. And I wonder whether one of the challenges for leadership and leadership within sales as much as anything is to be designing a way of doing things that designs human interaction into the process. Because as we said on the last digital download I was on, which was talking about the perfect email, if it's perfect about you, but it's nothing about me, it's going to go into spam and I'm not going to see you anyway. So how can we design processes that recognize the value of human interaction? I think is really interesting, because it pulls against the doing more, getting more, creating more, sealing more deals. It pushes against that sort of efficiency push that if only we could make more calls, if only we could have more in the pipeline, then we'd sell more and we'd do more. It sort of pushes against that into the quality versus quantity. Does it?
Do people think that the role of leadership will change? Because if you think about leadership to today, it's all about, I say to you, create me a first draft and then send it back to you and I'll check it, or give me a status update. and a lot of these things can now actually be completed by AI. So the time from idea to execution is actually like a second, because I can create that draft. So if we're basically reviewing drafts or things like that, basically what we're doing is that we're acting as a bottleneck to the organization rather than actually moving it forward. So do you think that we should be changing in terms of it from a leadership perspective to be, you know, we always talk about AI basically moves us up. If that moves us up, do we need to be talking more about thinking more about strategy and the strategic foresight? Do we need to be thinking about how do we mentor and align our people? And how do we actually start thinking about new things? So sort of like white space and deep thoughts. So for me, that's the sort of thing that AI can do a lot of the drudgery. But as leaders, we need to actually move up our thinking and move up our game like that. What do people think?
Well, something that's interesting to me, specifically in the marketing arena, that I see is that for the past 10 years, people have been doing the drudgery, right? They're creating the drafts, they're editing their video creation, right? Like they're doing these, creating images for social posts, right? Like people have been doing these things. And so while AI creates the opportunity to move out of production per se and into more of that strategic thinking, the people think that their value is associated with the doing. And so that's why they use the AI to do more of the doing, because that's all they know. And so unless you have a leader that's helping people reframe what their value is to the organization, and it like, I mean, there's leaders too who are threatened by AI,
Yeah.
right? Like, so if you have a
There's been a number of CEOs that have resigned saying, I'm going to retire, I'm not going to do the AI thing.
But right. I think there are only two things that a leader needs to do. The first of them is to give permission, because everybody is scared of doing something wrong, and having permission to try something different is an incredible gift. You said about strategy, Tim. Yeah, maybe some leaders are great at strategy, some aren't. I don't think that that's the pure leadership thing, because you can hire people that do strategy. But the other thing I think is inspire. You know, you all of these old paintings of the Duke of Wellington going into battle, you know, on horseback with his saber raised above his head, riding into battle first. That's what staff need to see, isn't it? That's what people need to see. They need to see, here's somebody that I can follow into battle. And the rest of it is job related. So yeah, you know, you have to do hiring and firing. You have to check performance and this kind of stuff. But those are just tasks. I think it's you said earlier, Tim, about soft skills. It's the ultimate soft skills thing. It's the saying to somebody, "Well done, didn't work this time. You should still keep trying it, because it's going to work one day, maybe." And to inspire them through their actions, you know, with kindness and with firmness and with a drive in whichever direction, because those are the things that will never ever ever be replaced by any kind of bot. Yeah, really good comment from Andrew here. AI for recruitment will miss the personality of a person. Yeah, searching CVs for keywords and buzzwords is ridiculous, and it strikes me that you know, you're almost certainly guaranteeing the hiring, or at least the interviewing, of somebody that understands the game rather than what it is then they're actually needing to do.
Such as comment is really good.
I would say it's the opposite. It's about training your AI to be better than you. Yeah, very good point. The technology needs to enhance the sale. Yes, the salesman is the human element, but as a buyer, I want information that is accurate, up to date, and correct. The salesman is the consultant, the AI is the intelligence. In my experience, the AI is performing better than the salesperson. We need salespeople that train and work with the AI. Yeah, I think that's very true. I think, though, that back to your point, Tracy, about marketing and AI creating marketing content, you know, I think that the challenge is that as AI gets better, the stuff that's being sent out is going to be better, but everybody's stuff is going to be better. Therefore, your better email is going to be no better than Helen's better email or Tim's better email. So everything just, all the boats rise. But the only determining factor and the only thing that makes me read an email when it comes to me, and I'm sure it's the same for everyone else, is do I know the person? Because if I get an email from Tim, I read it. If I get an email from Tom, I don't, because I've no idea who Tom is. And actually, that's a massive difference, isn't it?
And I think just want you to go back to the leadership point, because I think that the thing about what people are measured on is really important. So unless you are the leader of the organization, marketing measured on leads, sales, sales measured on deals closed, revenue, procurement, buyers measured on savings, or risk managed, or continuity of supply, that sort of thing. So I think there is something around leadership of being able to inspire and being able to encourage to improve, and that thing about leading into battle is interesting. It talked more about forging a path through the undergrowth, and the leader being the one that's sort of chopping so that the team can come behind. But if we don't value the right things, which is successful outcomes, I think, whatever we define them as being, I think it's quite difficult. So back to that pull always for marketing, for instance, is about, in my experience of talking to them, is about, that's a lovely thing that we're doing together that I've created, but actually who downloaded it, what were the emails like, and did that actually lead to any sales conversations? Because otherwise, I'm going to be asked about this. Why did you do this? Why did you spend your time on this? Why did you? So I think there's some tension there around what the business is there for in the first place, which in most cases is bottom line, isn't it?
Well, and I think, like, from a leadership point of view, it's also really important for leaders to look at their behavior and whether or not it's helping shift that, like, middle management and lower behavior, or if it's actively driving that behavior. Because from a marketing point of view, what I see a lot is somebody sees a thing or hears a thing in leadership and they're like, oh, we need to create a piece of content on this. Marketing team, go create a piece of content on this. And then you end up having like a content repository of thousands of documents that get used one time, because this is the process. And this is actually a leadership function now that is driving this. So what AI can do is it can amplify that, right? Like, more leaders can have more ideas and you can create more content that nobody's going to use more than once faster, right? But it doesn't actually solve the problem, which is the process behind your content creation isn't generating conversations. And so unless, as a leader or the strategic leader, let's say even at the CEO level, we're looking at how is the leader's behavior driving these things throughout the organization, and can we switch that? Like, now we're talking about leadership mindset, and I don't know about you guys, but I feel like leadership mindset is one of the most difficult things to change in an organization, because you're either like, this is how we do it here, right? Or you're the type of leader that Tim was speaking about earlier, where you're just like always in discovery, right? Like, we're always trying to figure out what works. How do I support this team? How do I adjust to this adaptation in the market? How do I, right? Like, but there's a lot of like, do this, do this, do this, do this. And it's not that easy to switch from do this mentality to how can we mentality.
So we've got some great comments that have come in. Alex Hug just said, I've just heard the following quote from a podcast. You should not be afraid of AI taking over your job, but a person that uses AI taking over your job, which is a great quote. And Sasha agrees with that. Sasha also says, leaders are frightened of getting it wrong. Training and education is key. Imani said, mind you, it can do emotional support. I would like to know more about this. I tested it at my emotional support work. All I did was give it structure, and it validated, acknowledged OEQ and MI, and actively gave back responses. I don't really understand that, seeing as I don't operate in that field.
Well, if the AI has been trained on stuff, and if it's been trained on the internet, so she's talking about NLP. If it's been trained on NLP, then you should be able to ask questions of it, and it will give you an NLP, neuro-linguist programming, for those watching in black and white. So yes, it should be able to give an NLP answer.
Yeah, fantastic. In 2025, a study on AI voice realism, people correctly identified an AI-generated voice only about 60% of the time. In other words, around 40% of people believed the AI voice was human. The same research found that listeners believed that an AI voice was the same person as the original human speaker around 80% of the time, showing how convincing modern voice cloning has become.
Yeah,
and this again it's an inevitability, but is this okay? Is it okay? Is it disingenuous? And
well, the thing is that the genie's out the bottle.
oh, absolutely.
So it's we can sit here and say no, it's wrong, but the fact of the matter is it's
there. Yeah.
I mean, from work that we've done that we've taken written documents and turned them into AI voice-driven podcasts, and it sounds like a human basically delivering it.
Yeah.
If I learn best by I learn best by reading. I don't like audiobooks, but a lot of people do like audiobooks. So if you learn best by actually listening to someone speak, then what's wrong in basically taking a book and saying, right, I'm going to get AI to do the audiobook version of it?
Well, and I think the other interesting thing here is there's a creation component and a consumption component, right? So my son watches this, I don't know, he found this channel where this guy plays this farming video game. And so you watch him build his farm. And I don't know, city kids, right? Like they want to build farms. But there's some of the episodes where you can tell it's the guy talking. And then there's some of the episodes where you can tell that it's the AI, but it's the guy's voice, right? So it is trained on his voice, and you can tell. And the thing that's really interesting about it is because he flips back and forth between the two. Like now, Carter and I have been like, oh, this is the AI one, and this is the real guy. And Nicholas is starting to pick up on the difference. And he's like, but it's the same voice. And I'm like, yeah, it is the same voice. So AI is trained on his voice. And so there's the consumption component of it, but there's also the creation component of it. So I was having a conversation yesterday. We were talking about introverts and extroverts and how people process thoughts. And I process thoughts through speaking. It's why I like to come to shows like this, because we talk about interesting topics and I get to explore my thoughts through thinking. If you are like that and you replace your actual talking conversation thinking with an AI doing it, then you don't get to do the thinking. I don't get to develop thoughts. I don't get to think new things. I don't get to create new value. I don't get to do a whole bunch of things. And there's a human experience of that. And so while it might seem easy to outsource, I have tons of audio content, right? I have lots. I could totally train an AI on my audio content and it could be my voice, but I lose something in that. And if we're not paying attention to what we lose as part of that, then I think that it's not the consumption component, it's the experience component.
And I think you're in danger then of, you're in danger of when people look at that content or look at that output, you're in danger of one of two extremes, I think, and that's what I'm seeing. You see that in the news environment. You've either got a whole, people on the side of they don't believe anything. I mean, we might use the phrase fake news, but I'd call that skepticism. So nothing that you see, you believe. A phrase that's used over here is nobody trusts a politician because nothing they says is true or they're going to deliver on. Or you go the other way, and your wee boy is lucky because he's got parents that are telling him the difference. If you're sat in front of Farming Simulator or whatever it is live, and you don't have a parent telling you that one version of the voice is what is the real person and the other version of the voice is not, you end up thinking that all versions of that voice is the person, and you end up on the blind trust side of the scale. So I think what we see in email marketing now is the dial is on the skepticism side. Here's somebody spamming me. Here's somebody who's not genuine. They're just trying to sell me something. And even in some of the LinkedIn connection requests, and when you accept them, off they go on the selling cycle. So you ended up on the skepticism side for a lot of things where AI is supposed to help us establish a connection, start a conversation, help people with something that you genuinely think what you do could help them. People just straight into spam. So I don't know. I worry whether we're in danger of sort of doing that with it as well.
So one of the things that I think that changed many years ago, there's a what I would call cognitive offloading, and that's been going on for years. So I still have this in my desk drawer, which is one of my first calculators. And what that did was that people tried to ban them because what happened was that they said that people wouldn't do mental arithmetic. And of course, I don't do mental arithmetic because I've got a calculator. And then the next thing, Google came along and said, you don't need to remember facts because you can basically go to Google and Google stuff. So if I want to know the year that the Battle of Hastings takes place, I can Google that. I don't need to remember that it was 1066. And so gradually this cognitive offloading has been taking place. So with AI, again, we don't need to remember anything, and we don't need to actually think. But what we do need to do is actually, and I think it's really important what you said, Tracy, which is that there's that balance, which is what do we use AI for and what do we use our brains for? And I agree with you. You could take all of the data on your shows, put them into a pot, stir it around, and come up. And this is what but actually, isn't part of it somehow? Some of it is actually the humanity of it. Changing tack slightly, talking about leadership and use of AI. If AI basically, I can go to AI and say, here's the problem, here's all the data, come up with 10 suggestions. I still have to make a decision as the leader, which one is the best. So I still have to take the risk, because I can say that ask AI which is the best one, and it will come up with but at the end of the day, I as the leader I'm actually having to take the risk. So risk within an organization still sits with me in terms of where we're going to go. You talked earlier on. A friend of mine did an MBA at Cranfield, one of the top MBAs here in the UK. And their definition of leadership was basically you're in the trenches and someone blew the whistle and jumped up over the trenches and said, follow me. And they didn't, and the person who did that was the leader, and they didn't have a gun. And so that is a definition of leadership. And I think that kind of says what brings together what you said earlier on, Adam, about what is a leader, and is getting the people to follow. And that's something so human, isn't it?
Well, yes. And I'm just thinking, like, how many people have had leaders that would be like, come on, and you're like, let's just let them get shot, right? Like, this would be better for everybody.
Yeah. So what should leaders be doing then? Because I think that typically leaders, and this is again a sweeping generalization, they are often older people, they are often male, so they're a very specific demographic and age. That's not to say that all leaders are old, but even young leaders, the guys that founded Google, the guys that founded Facebook, the guys they're all middle-aged men now. So what should leaders be doing now? Because this is a very the landscape of business, and indeed the world, is a very, very different place to even what it was a decade ago. So what should leaders be spending their time doing now?
Maybe they should spend some time thinking about whether or not they're operating in the command and control infrastructure or the collaborative ecosystem infrastructure. But again, like, I mean, that sounds simple, but at the end of the day, all of this comes down to self-awareness, personal ego, right? Like it's not that easy to make the shift. Where I think the biggest opportunity is for the leaders who are those curious leaders, who are the supportive coaching leaders. And I would say a lot of these are in smaller businesses right now, right? That those leaders can lead the industry by example, by using AI to be more productive at that. And like, how can I find ways to pay attention to my employees' mental health, right? Not how can I just like run a survey system. And I mean, we've all filled in surveys. Are we all telling the full truth on those surveys? I'm pretty sure we're not. So like we can do those things, but we have the opportunity to use our time and the way our thoughts already flow and explore what is possible for the human co-interaction. I love the word ecosystem, right? I believe that as much as we don't want to maybe think so, all humans, all companies who even consider themselves competitors, or we're all working in an ecosystem together, right? Like you have some of the business, I have some of the business. We help more customers that way. There's like, we work, societies, communities, right? Like all of these things are ecosystems. And so if we take the opportunity to explore how could we better ecosystem together, then, and again, not all leaders will do that, but I think if the leaders who already think that way start to use the tools for these types of things, we're going to see, my hypothesis anyway, is that we are going to see that more meaningful things get done, which actually means less things and less volume has to get done. So instead of us saying we need more sales, I need to do more calls, my mind shifts from I need more sales, who can I talk to about it?
But isn't it also the fact that AI actually gives you the time to do stuff that you wouldn't do?
Well, and then that's the interesting thing, right? Because if we have extra time, just like Adam said at the beginning, we will fill it with the things we already know. We fill those things with what we already know. So maybe AI makes our job more productive and we like gardening. So now we can spend more time gardening, but we already know gardening. We like gardening. We know gardening. So we do more gardening. I think it's less common for people to fill that empty space with the things they don't know, their curiosity. How can we, like how much more time do people spend playing phone games or watching TV because we have AI, right? Well, those things aren't contributing to anything in a meaningful way.
Can you just bring up Marie-France Samba's comment, please? Because I totally agree with it, that we should pay attention to employees' mental health. 100%, Tracy Porrison.
Hi, Marie-France. It's good to see you.
We've got some really interesting comments that have been coming through, probably too many to go through now. Sasha said leaders should be investing in education.
Yeah.
And then his funny comment after that, they need to retire to Spain.
I think that's the old middle-aged men.
Yeah, but actually, in a world where and you said at the very beginning, Tim, about white space and blue sky thinking, actually that is not such a bad idea because
it's too hot.
Yeah, but people need the space to be able to think about the abstract stuff that currently AI can't do. So,
and my experience of way back when I was a trainee accountant, where a lot of the things we did were using the calculator and not the spreadsheet, was that the advent of the spreadsheet and financial information being processed a lot more effectively and a lot quickly was that that there was more space for things like strategic planning and financial modeling, and from a procurement point of view, more time that's not spent on spend analytics or monitoring supplier risk, because you've got all those metrics going on, means you've got more time for conversations with the business, conversations with suppliers, which lead to those aha moments around innovation, around collaboration, around thinking differently. So it's not all about, we won't have to work as hard, so we can all go to Spain, the Hebrides, Vancouver, Canada, Calgary. I think the business has more space to do the value add things, which actually help the business make more money, achieve more outcomes, and obviously manage employees and do all that sort of thing. So I think there's something around that's really interesting that we've seen before. AI is not something we've seen before, but we've seen technological transformation within the workplace before, and that these are the good things that could come out of it, rather than being on the hamster wheel, just doing more. That sort of industrial revolution, making more widgets type outcome that you think about.
But I think that still people's mindset is one of like a busy fool, isn't it? If I do more of this, that's where I add the most value. And actually working smarter rather than harder is invariably the answer.
Yeah.
But sometimes the challenge is seeing where smart lies.
And that's the leadership thing, isn't it? The leadership modeling effectiveness rather than productivity. I was using AI to be more effective rather than using AI probably to be more productive. You can do that, but using it to be more effective feels to me like a much better model of leadership behavior.
That's a fantastic quote, actually. Use AI to be more effective, not more productive. And I think that absolutely is it, though, isn't it? Because we've written at length about the dangers with looking to AI to increase efficiency within an organization, because there's a limit to how much efficiency you can squeeze. Like there's a limit to how much discount you can squeeze out of a supplier, or much you can ramp the price up to a client, or how many days you can charge for on a project. And actually the opportunity here is to completely remodel the organization, isn't it? To do something entirely different in a way that hitherto hasn't been possible to do. And that's the challenge. And that does require that blue sky thinking. And that does require people to really cut loose and try something different.
Yeah, I think there's again, if the underlying belief is do more, get more, then we're going to keep getting trapped in this do more calls, send more emails, do. But I think, this is what I'm seeing the data tell us right now. If you want to use AI to assess the data, you can, but the data is saying that do more doesn't equal get more. So if I'm looking at this from a leadership perspective, and I would expect the leaders to be the ones looking at this, okay, the do more, get more belief system is broken, right? That's not working. We can't just keep doing more and getting more. We've been doing more and we have been getting less, right? So it's not even maintaining what we had by doing more. So that relationship, that formula is broken. So we can't keep doing the things that we're doing based on that formula. We need a new formula. Now we become scientists and we go back to the lab and we say, what is the formula that is going to work? And I do think that this is, I have fun with AI on this all the time. I'm like, what if this, right? Is there evidence that says, and I love to pull okay, we know this about how people train for the Olympics. How can we use that in a marketing, creation cycle, right? It's like a mad scientist going into a lab. And because AI has so much information, it can actually be really helpful in generating those new ideas. But then the goal, the purpose has to be to generate ideas that work, right? And if we go into it using the tool for that, we can generate ideas, at least that are testable so we can figure out if they're going to work. And it's very good at coming up with test plans too, by the way. And if we can do that, if we use it to help us do that, then, I mean, if we're talking about leading a market or leading an industry, that's how you stay ahead. So I would say, let's go do that, leaders.
Brilliant. So that seems like a suitable place to wrap up for the week. So thank you, everybody. Obviously, thank you, everybody on the panel. Thank you, everybody in the audience. What fantastic bunch of comments we've had.
Thank you so much for all of the comments and the engagement. It's been
Imani, Andrew, Marie-France, Sasha, Alex, yes. Thank you to everybody, and anyone that we've obviously missed. It's been great. So next week we are going to be talking about something which is incredibly exciting for us, about how to use AI to create personalized communications at scale. So it may well be worth you all popping along to that as well, to have a listen to something which is the first time this has happened. So until next week, thank you all very much indeed, and have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.